That spot, it hurts. The rancher checked and was shocked. Jacob Miller was an old rancher who lived far away from the busy town of Red Valley. His ranch was big, open, and surrounded by dry fields, wooden fences, and tall desert grass. Every morning, the sun rose over the hills and painted the land in soft golden light. Jacob had lived here for more than 30 years, and he knew every corner of his land very well. He was a quiet man. He did not talk much, but he understood animals better than people. His ranch was his whole life. He raised horses, cows, and a few sheep. But among all his animals, there was one he cared about the most, a strong brown horse named Thunder. Thunder was not just any horse. He was fast, loyal, and smart. Jacob had raised him since he was a small foal. They had spent years together riding across the open land, fixing fences, and checking cattle. Thunder always followed Jacob without fear or hesitation. But one morning, something felt different. Jacob woke up early as usual. The air was cool and the sky was clear. He put on his old hat, drank a cup of coffee, and walked outside toward the barn. Everything seemed normal at first. The chickens were moving around, and the cattle were slowly waking up. But when Jacob reached the horse stable, he stopped. Thunder was standing in a strange position. He was not moving around like he usually did. Instead, he was standing still near the wooden fence, with his head slightly lowered. His ears were not alert, and his tail barely moved. Jacob frowned. "That's not like him," he said softly to himself. He slowly walked closer. "Morning, boy," Jacob said in a calm voice. Thunder turned his head slightly, but he did not come closer like he normally did. Instead, he stepped back one small step. Jacob noticed it immediately. Something was wrong. He reached out his hand and gently touched Thunder's neck. The horse did not react badly, but he also did not respond with his usual calm energy. Jacob walked around him, carefully watching every movement. Thunder seemed uncomfortable, but Jacob could not see any clear injury. The horse looked normal on the outside. Jacob spoke again, softer this time. "What's bothering you, boy?" Thunder shifted his weight from one leg to another. Then suddenly, he moved away from Jacob's hand when it came close to his left side. Jacob stopped. He narrowed his eyes and stepped closer again, this time more carefully. When his hand reached the same spot, Thunder moved away again, clearly avoiding it. Jacob slowly pulled his hand back. He stood still for a moment, thinking. "That spot. It hurts," he said quietly. He looked closely at the area, but there was nothing obvious. No cuts, no blood, no swelling that he could easily see. Everything looked fine, but Thunder's behavior was telling a different story. Jacob scratched his beard slowly. He had worked with animals his whole life. He knew when something was not right, even if it was not visible. He gently walked Thunder into the barn so he could get better light. Thunder followed, but still seemed careful with his movements. Inside the barn, Jacob tied the horse gently and began a slow inspection. He ran his hands carefully along Thunder's body, checking every area. Thunder stayed quiet, but reacted again when Jacob touched the same side. Jacob's face became serious. "This is not normal," he said. He stepped back and looked at the horse from a distance. Thunder lowered his head again, as if tired or uncomfortable. Jacob felt a small worry growing inside him. He had seen many injuries before, but this one was different. It was not visible, and that made it harder to understand. He thought for a moment. Maybe it was something small, maybe something stuck under the skin, or maybe something he could not see yet. Jacob decided one thing clearly. He would not ignore it. He gently patted Thunder's neck and spoke in a calm voice. "Don't worry, boy. I'll find out what's wrong." Outside, the wind moved slowly across the ranch, and the wooden fences creaked softly. The land looked peaceful, but Jacob's mind was no longer calm. Something was wrong with Thunder, and he needed answers. And he knew one thing for sure. This was only the beginning of the mystery. The next morning arrived with a soft golden light spreading across Jacob Miller's ranch. The air was calm, but Jacob's mind was not. He had barely slept the night before. Thunder's strange behavior kept repeating in his thoughts again and again. As soon as the sun rose, Jacob walked straight toward the barn. His boots pressed into the dry ground, and the sound of birds echoed around him. Everything looked normal outside, but inside the barn, something still felt wrong. Thunder was standing quietly in his stall. He looked a little better than yesterday, but he was still not his usual self. He lifted his head when Jacob entered, but there was no excitement like before. Jacob stepped closer slowly. "Good morning, boy," he said in a gentle voice. Thunder responded with a soft breath but did not move forward. Jacob sighed. "Still not okay, huh?" He placed his hand on Thunder's neck again, carefully watching for any reaction. The horse stayed calm for a few seconds, but when Jacob moved his hand toward the same left side, Thunder shifted away again. That was enough confirmation for Jacob. "There is something there," he said quietly. He tied Thunder properly so he would stay still. Then Jacob went to his old storage shelf and brought a small flashlight and grooming brush. The barn light was not strong enough, so he needed to look more carefully. He began brushing Thunder's coat slowly. Dust and loose hair fell to the ground. Thunder stood still but stayed alert. Jacob worked carefully, checking every inch of the horse's side. Minutes passed. Nothing clear appeared. Jacob frowned slightly. Strange. He checked again, this time pressing very gently near the sensitive area. Thunder reacted again, moving his body away. Jacob stopped immediately. He took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. He knew forcing things could make it worse, so he slowed down and observed carefully instead. After a few more minutes, something small caught his eye. It was not easy to see at first. Under the fur, there was a tiny, uneven bump. It was not a cut or a wound, but something slightly raised under the skin. Jacob leaned closer. This wasn't here before, he said. He touched it very lightly, and Thunder immediately shifted again. Now Jacob was sure. Something was under the skin causing irritation. It was small, but it was clearly bothering the horse. Jacob stepped back and looked at Thunder with concern. Poor boy. He did not panic, but he also knew this was not something he should handle alone. It needed proper care. He washed his hands and sat on a wooden stool near the stall. His mind started thinking deeply. How did this happen? The ranch was clean. He checked fences regularly. There were no sharp objects that should have caused this. Still, animals sometimes got injured in ways that were not easy to notice. Jacob stood up again and looked at Thunder. I need help with this, he said quietly. He went inside the house and picked up an old telephone. There was a vet clinic not too far from the town. Dr. Emily Carter had helped many ranchers before. She was experienced and careful with animals. Jacob called her and explained the situation in simple words. He told her about Thunder's behavior and the strange bump under the skin. Dr. Emily listened carefully on the phone. I'll come and check him, she said calmly. Jacob felt a small relief after hearing that. While waiting for her arrival, Jacob stayed near the barn. He did not leave Thunder alone. The horse seemed slightly more relaxed when Jacob stayed close and spoke softly. Easy now, help is coming, Jacob said. Thunder stood quietly, as if understanding the words. But Jacob's mind was still active. He kept thinking about the bump. It was small, but it was not normal. Something must have caused it. Maybe a broken part of fence, maybe a sharp plant, or something else hidden in the environment. The ranch suddenly felt different to Jacob. Not dangerous, but unknown in a way he had not noticed before. Time passed slowly. Finally, he saw dust rising on the road. A small vehicle was coming toward the ranch. Dr. Emily had arrived. Jacob took a deep breath and walked toward the gate. This was the moment when he would finally get real answers about Thunder's strange pain. And he did not yet know that what seemed like a small problem might lead to something he had completely missed on his own land. Dr. Emily Carter arrived at Jacob Miller's ranch just after noon. Her small white truck stopped near the barn, and a soft cloud of dust rose from the dry ground. She stepped out with a calm and confident expression. She had visited many ranches before, and she always carried a quiet seriousness when it came to animal health. Jacob was already waiting for her near the gate. Thank you for coming so quickly, Jacob said. Dr. Emily nodded. You sounded worried. Let's take a look at him. They walked together toward the barn. The sun was now higher in the sky, making the wooden fences glow under the heat. Inside, Thunder stood quietly in his stall. He looked tired but alert, as if he understood that something important was happening. Dr. Emily slowly approached him. Hey there, she said softly. Thunder moved his head slightly but did not step back. He seemed to trust her calm voice. Jacob stood nearby and explained everything again in detail. He started acting strange 2 days ago. He avoids this side when I touch him. Dr. Emily listened carefully without interrupting. Then she gently placed her hand on Thunder's neck. The horse stayed calm. She slowly moved her hand toward the left side of his body. Thunder reacted slightly, shifting his weight. Dr. Emily narrowed her eyes a little. Yes, I see what you mean. She asked Jacob to bring more light into the barn. He opened the side doors, letting sunlight pour in. The barn became brighter, and dust particles floated in the air. Dr. Emily began a careful examination. She ran her hands slowly along Thunder's body, observing every reaction. The horse stayed patient, but showed discomfort at one specific area again. This is the same spot, she said quietly. Jacob nodded. Yes? Dr. Emily took a small tool from her bag and gently parted the horse's fur. She focused closely on the area Jacob had noticed earlier. After a few moments, she paused. There is something here, she said. Jacob stepped closer. What is it? Dr. Emily did not answer immediately. She continued examining carefully. Her expression stayed calm but focused. Finally, she spoke. It feels like a small object under the skin. Not serious, but it's causing irritation. Jacob frowned. How did it get there? Dr. Emily shook her head slightly. It could be anything small, a piece of wood, a thorn, or something sharp from the environment. Sometimes animals don't show pain immediately, so it stays unnoticed for a while. Thunder shifted slightly again, and Dr. Emily stopped touching the area. I don't want to stress him too much here, she added. Jacob looked worried. Is he going to be okay? Dr. Emily gave a calm nod. Yes, but I would prefer to remove it safely at my clinic. He will need proper care and equipment. Jacob agreed immediately. If that's better for him, we'll do it. Dr. Emily gently patted Thunder. Good boy, you're going to be fine. Thunder responded with a slow breath and stood more calmly now. Jacob felt a small relief, but he was still curious. Can you tell if it's been there for long? Dr. Emily thought for a moment. Not too long, but long enough to cause discomfort. Maybe a few days. Jacob rubbed his chin. I check this ranch every day. I don't understand how I missed it. Dr. Emily looked around the barn. Sometimes it's not easy to notice small changes. Animals also hide discomfort until it becomes stronger. Jacob nodded slowly, but he still felt something was missing in the explanation. As they prepared to leave, Dr. Emily carefully guided Thunder out of the stall. The horse followed slowly, but stayed calm. Jacob watched closely as they moved toward the truck. Before leaving, Dr. Emily turned to Jacob. I'll take good care of him, don't worry. Jacob replied, I trust you. The truck slowly drove away, carrying Thunder toward the clinic. Jacob stood alone in the quiet barn for a moment. The silence felt heavier now. The problem had been identified, but his mind was not fully satisfied. He kept thinking about the ranch, the fences, and every corner of his land. He walked slowly toward the fence line again. The wind moved through the dry grass, and everything looked normal, but Jacob could not shake the feeling that something small and hidden had caused all of this. And deep inside, he felt this was not just about Thunder's injury anymore. It was about something on his ranch that he had not noticed yet. 2 days later, Thunder returned to Jacob Miller's ranch. The morning was quiet, just like always, with soft wind moving across the dry fields. A small veterinary truck stopped near the gate. Dr. Emily Carter stepped out first, and behind her, a helper carefully guided Thunder down the ramp. Jacob was already waiting. The moment he saw his horse, his face softened. Welcome back, boy, Jacob said quietly. Thunder lifted his head. He looked much better now. His movement was smoother, and there was no discomfort in his steps. The treatment at the clinic had gone well. The small object under his skin had been safely removed, and the wound was healing nicely. Dr. Emily walked over to Jacob. He's doing great, she said with a calm smile. No complications. He just needs rest for a few more days. Jacob nodded with relief. Thank you. Really? Thunder slowly walked back into the barn. This time, he did not hesitate or shift in discomfort. He seemed relaxed, almost peaceful. Jacob followed him inside and stood quietly for a moment, watching his horse eat. The sound of chewing filled the barn, mixing with the soft morning breeze coming through the open doors. For the first time in days, Jacob felt calm, but his mind was still not fully at rest. Dr. Emily joined him inside the barn. Sometimes these small issues look bigger than they are, she said gently. Jacob replied, I keep thinking about how it happened. Something so small caused so much trouble. Dr. Emily nodded. That's often how it is with animals. Small things go unnoticed until they start hurting. There was a short silence. Then Jacob spoke again, more thoughtfully. But I checked everything. I walk this land every day. I know every corner. Dr. Emily looked at him for a moment. Even then, things can change without being obvious. After a while, she packed her things and prepared to leave. Take care of him, she said. He should recover fully now. Jacob thanked her once more, and she left the ranch, leaving behind a calm morning and a healed horse. Jacob stayed near the barn after she left. The ranch felt peaceful again, but his thoughts were still active. He decided to walk the fence line one more time. He moved slowly across the dry ground, scanning everything carefully. The wind blew lightly, making the tall grass sway. Everything looked normal at first, but Jacob didn't stop. He checked the wooden fences one by one. Some were old, some slightly worn, but nothing seemed dangerous. Still, he continued walking. After some time, he reached a corner of the ranch that he rarely visited. The grass was thicker here, and the fence was partly hidden behind it. Jacob stopped. Something caught his attention. A small section of the fence had a broken wooden edge. It was not sharp enough to look dangerous from far away, but when he got closer, he noticed how rough and uneven it was. The surface had splinters that were barely visible unless someone looked closely. Jacob's eyes narrowed. "This could do it," he said quietly. He ran his hand carefully near the edge. It was not extremely sharp, but enough to cause small hidden injuries if an animal brushed against it repeatedly. Jacob stepped back slowly. Now it made sense. Thunder must have brushed against this area without anyone noticing. It was not a big injury, just a small hidden one that slowly caused discomfort over time. Jacob shook his head slightly. All this time, right here. He stood there for a while, thinking deeply. It was not about something dangerous or dramatic. It was something simple, something easy to miss, and that was what made it important. Jacob took out his tools from the shed and started repairing the fence right away. He worked slowly but carefully, removing the broken wood and smoothing the surface. He checked every nearby section as well, making sure nothing else was unsafe. As he worked, Thunder stood in the barn in the distance, calm and healthy again. The sun moved higher in the sky, and the ranch slowly returned to its usual peaceful rhythm. When Jacob finally finished, he stepped back and looked at the repaired fence. It looked clean and safe again. He wiped his hands and sighed softly. "Small problem, big lesson," he said to himself. Then he turned back toward the barn. Thunder was still there, resting peacefully. Jacob smiled slightly. He walked over and placed a gentle hand on the horse's neck. "Next time, I'll look closer," he said quietly. The wind moved across the ranch again, but this time, everything felt right. And Jacob understood something important. Sometimes the smallest hidden things can cause the biggest problems, but if you pay attention, even the hardest mysteries can be solved with patience and care.